I want to share with you a clip of Douglas Murray speaking literally days after the October 7th massacre. He's at a synagogue, I believe, in conversation with several other prominent rabbis, all of whom I know. And what he said, I think, and again, to stress, this was literally days after the massacre. But what he said, I think, is so important for us to remember right now that we're in the midst of war. And it's a message that can perhaps be forgotten at times. And I think is really, really important to recall. So let's have a look at what he said about what Israel must do in this war.
Rabbi Dweck, you mentioned simplicity of binaries and the difficulty, or the difficulties that can occur from falling into them. As you say, good, evil, right, wrong. Let me introduce one that is unequivocal in my mind. Win, lose. The Israeli people seem to me to be the only country in the world who are never allowed to win a war. Everybody else in the world is. This country has done unspeakable things in the name of winning wars. What do you think the letters back from World War II veterans were to their families when they mentioned a beloved comrade dying in battle, and then mentioning capturing Germans, and people saying in postcards home to their families, "We didn't take many prisoners that day"? What did that mean? It meant they committed a war crime. Was that right? It's not my place to judge them. I wasn't there. But they wanted to win, and at any price, which is what Churchill said, at any price. But Israel, whenever it begins to win, is told it must stop. We have, once again, as I say, welcome back to London, Douglas, all of the commentators talking about the importance of... No, not restraint, the other great one. Proportionality. This is such bad ethical thinking, it should be chucked out from a first grader. I listen to people like William Hague and radio commentators daring to ask Israeli politicians in the last few days, what can you do to reassure us that Israel will not be disproportionate in its response? Sorry, if thousands and thousands of British girls and others had just been brutally raped and murdered, I think we would like something more than a discussion from our friends about proportionality. And in any case, what does it mean? Does it mean you try to find a music festival in Gaza, if such a thing ever existed, and go and rape and torture and murder the exact number of their women, as the Hamas did to the Israelis? The whole notion is preposterous, but it comes back to this point. All the time, Israel is stopped from winning. And so we had this in Gaza in 2005. And what does it mean? You have a festering problem that is unresolved, but it is made the Jewish people's responsibility to solve the insoluble problem. The rest of the world does not have to solve the insoluble problem. Israel is given an utterly unsolvable problem and then condemned when it does not solve it. Win, lose. No clearer choice.
So there you go. I wanted to show you that clip because hearing murmurs of ceasefire and deals and the like, it is so important that we remember exactly what Douglas said, echoing Churchill's words, victory at any price. We must not agree to any kind of ceasefire, any kind of deal. You get peace through strength. That's to quote Ronald Reagan. And he really was learning from Torah-given morality, which teaches that when you fight a war, you fight to establish peace, long-term peace. A ceasefire does not do that. It creates a stalemate. It's win or lose, do or die. We must not negotiate with terrorists. We must not negotiate with them, because if we do any kind of deal, be it ceasefires or hostage deals where we release Arab terrorists, we are basically telling them that your massacres, your hostage taking pays. It works. So you hold all of Israel and the Jewish people hostage. The only way that, or the way that you do get the hostages is through military pressure and military might. And we must not forget that. We must not take lessons in morality from a world that hasn't got a clue, as Rabbi Freeman put it recently, from a world that doesn't know what a woman is. We're not going to take lectures on them telling us about morality and war, which is of course much more complex and deep. So it's just so important that we remember this and shed. Sometimes it seems like it takes a non-Jew like Douglas to help us shed our inferiority complex, which is understandable. It's understandable that we've developed such an inferiority complex after 2,000 years of exile, persecution, wandering around the world, being pushed around the world, and quite remarkably, despite that being pretty successful at times, despite those odds. But still, we've got this need to be like, this need for the world's approval, and we have to stop that. If we want to be truly sovereign, we have to do that. It's interesting, getting a non-Jew like Douglas to really remind us of who we are and what we should be doing, and that we need to shed this inferiority complex. You even find this in the Torah itself. Every week, Jewish people who say the grace after meals on the Sabbath, on Shabbat, we read some lines from Psalms, from Tehillim in Hebrew, which was written, attributed to King David, having written them. And it says that the verses say, it's called Shir Malos, and the verses say, then the nation, it's talking about the Messianic times when the Jewish people return to their land and sovereignty and re-establish the temple, and the world recognizes the truth of the God of Israel and their unique relationship, his unique relationship with the Jewish people. And it says, then the nations of the earth will say, wow, look at what God has done with you. And then the Jewish people say, God has done greatly with us. And I heard a rabbi in my yeshiva say to me, it's almost like it takes the nations to tell us, look who you are, look how special this is. And we're like, oh my gosh, yeah, this really is amazing. And I think it's poignant to remind ourselves that we understandably do have a little bit of a sense of needing other people's approval at times, and some of us do, and we need to shed ourselves of that, because, as Douglas also said, Israel is simply doing what any other nation would doing. In fact, probably not as much, because of this fear of world opinion, etc. So just wanted to put that out there as an important video to remind ourselves of the clarity that we must maintain through this war until the end.